whenever it had been clarified that he had not suffered life-threatening injuries, because apparently that is what had been reported by some outlets, that he had suffered life-threatening injuries. And so when I got there, that had been clarified, that no, that is not the case. And so, I don't know. Yeah, it's old. It's old that everybody has to be the first to break the story. And then if you are first to break the story and you don't get credit for it, well, it's such just a part of the way media is in this day and age. It's a mess.
My favorite thing is that like some outside blogger, might have been a former member of like a major news organization, but is on like the periphery of things, will just float out a rumor, as it were, and then if it's correct, he'll somewhat get the credit. If not, whatever, he's on the periphery. I think that that happened with the LeBron to Cleveland thing. As like 3 days before it happened, I can't remember the guy's name. He did have some credibility, but he just put it out there. And then it just floated for 3 days, and then eventually it came through. But the fact that I don't remember his name,
right?
It really speaks to that, yeah. But throughout it all, like it was like a minute by minute, second by second thing. They're showing Cam on a stretcher. There's a lot of speculation there. Then Cam was sitting up and he had that big smile on his face in that famous photo now. So everyone's thinking, oh, he's going to be okay. Is he going to play Sunday? I don't know. And then the fantasy football people came in and was like, well, Derek Anderson should be a high upside QB2 coming in. And I get that fantasy football is in a vacuum, and like something like this impacts fantasy football just as much as Cam got an on-the-field injury. But just after actual humanity issues come into play like this, or like when Adrian Peterson, that whole thing went down, and then fantasy guys were all like, well, McKinnon is a high upside number one, Asiata if you're desperate, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you just give it time.
Yeah. Right.
Give it time. It's too soon.
Well, there's just some things in journalism that are just annoying. And as you were talking, I thought of like 3 different examples. But I think that, like, for instance, one of the examples I thought of was the night that, well, something happened with Ray Rice, and it was like a major momentum shifting sort of thing in the story. Rovell comes out and starts saying about how that affects financials on different things. And you're like, hold up, dude, wait. I think it was when the video first came out. You're like, you just watch this video and you're talking about the financials. I mean, we do lose a lot of the part of, hey, these are people, they have families, they have lives, they have, things that we all have, and they just get treated like a commodity because they put themselves in a situation to be a commodity. But do we have to ignore the fact that they're humans as well? I don't think we do.
True that. Something else, ignoring the fact that he is human, Jadeveon Clowney has definitely shown that he is human. And I'm just going to buckle up and let you go, baby. But microfracture surgery is out for a while. Might not be ready for the start of the 2015 season. Yeah.
I've been really conflicted on this because whenever the draft happened, I was like, okay, I'm sucking it up. He's the most talented player available. I don't trust him. I don't trust his work ethic, but we're just going to see how it goes. And then, of course, he comes in. He has to have sports hernia surgery. His knee has to get scoped. He gets a concussion. Plays a couple of games and he gets hurt again. I mean, the fact of the matter is from what I understand, there's a very strong chance that this knee issue goes back to his playing days at South Carolina. And he's been playing on it at a pretty high level. But whenever he had the lateral meniscus tear here in Houston, that exacerbated the microfracture issue. And so people are blaming the Texans organization, the medical staff, and that is, we don't know. We think we know. People think they know. They don't know. So they're blaming that. They're blaming, of course, the GM. They're blaming Jadeveon Clowney because he needs to change his tampon and man up and play and yada, yada, yada. I'm not quite sure where the blame lies yet. And me thinking logically through situations like this, I know doesn't make for good radio, but I'm not ready to pin the blame on any one entity here yet. It's an unfortunate circumstance. Maybe they could have drafted someone else, but at the same time, a lot of players come into the draft or in free agency or whatever, and they do not let the team they're negotiating with, their physicians, look at them. They only go with their own physicians or their former organization's physicians. And like Ed Reed didn't allow the Texans to look at him before he signed with the Texans. Jadeveon Clowney didn't allow the Texans to look at him per his agent's instructions. Fact of the matter is we don't know. We don't know where the ball was dropped here, and it just sucks. It sucks.
And I didn't know a whole lot about microfracture surgery before this happened, but it is that's scary stuff. I mean, that is something where it's really going to test Clowney's work ethic coming back. Because honestly, after reading about microfracture surgery and all the things that go into it, I would rather personally have an ACL if I was an athlete.
Yes, you would. And the fact of the matter is they broke down the numbers here on local radio. A sports medicine guy who works in Houston basically said that in the modern NFL age, there have been 61 players who have had this surgery. Only 9 have returned to play 5 or more years in the NFL. At the same time, you have to look at that like, well, the average NFL player plays less than 4 years. So how many of those were that guy anyway, you know?
And
how
also,
many were going to play?
How old were the player when they got it? Yep.
Exactly.
What do you think about Gossard Cherilus, who also had this microfracture surgery, tackle for the Colts, calling out Clowney?
What good's it going to do? I mean, he's just trying to sound like a tough guy. What's your point? What are you trying to get across? Everyone's different. Everyone recovers from things differently. Of course, I'm going to be the optimist, but you can't just automatically say it's going to go horribly and he's never going to have his explosion back and never blah, 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 blah. Robert Smith, the running back, also had the same surgery, and he said he had his most productive years after having the surgery.
Oh, yes, he did.
So, I'm just saying, I mean, every player is different.
All right, so if you had the opportunity to do it all over again, like you had the number 1 pick, Claire, you are the GM of the Texans right now, number 1 pick all over again, what would you do?
I would have done what I would have done in May, and still I would have taken Manziel first.
Oh.
I would have done it.
All right, so just close the door on Clowney, moving on to Manziel, since he is obviously near and dear to your heart, being an Aggie fan, getting his first start Sunday versus the Bengals in the most exciting Cincinnati Bengals 1 o'clock game in history, mostly because Manziel's starting. Yes. I feel like with Manziel and Favre, I feel like there should always be banjo music going on in the background. You know, like how Benny Hill always had that.
Because they're like Southern bad boy sort of guys. And
and it's Fran Tarkenton, too. Just watching his highlights from back in the day, former Vikings, former Giant quarterback who also improvised. Plays a lot like Manziel. A lot of people's comparisons. And just like the whole improvising, wild, anything's going to happen, Duke's a hazard, right? Almost thing. It's going to be fun.
Well, yeah, and a former NFL player who's on local radio here made the comparison that, you know, this guy could probably be not unlike a Brett Favre, where it may take him a couple of years to become the disciplined player that his franchise needs. But if he's able to do that and get to that level, then he can be that dangerous threat. As it is now, the fact that he skipped, on Tuesday night before it was up in the air whether or not Hoyer was going to start or Manziel a couple weeks ago, he was at a Cavs game, and apparently the organization made a decision based on that. I don't know. It just sort of indicates that, you know, he's still immature. He still has cockiness oozing out of his pores and whatnot. But it's going to be exciting. I mean, regardless, and all the Texas media outlets here, they've all switched from the Green Bay game, and they will be airing on Fox the Cleveland game this weekend. So Texas gets Manziel.
Well, I understand that the NFL is this whole, you have to be a student in the classroom, and you have to grind tape 24 hours a day to get ahead in this league, just because the teams, there's so much parity in the league. But do you think that, all right, so hear me out. Do you think this is a case? So Tony Dungy, when he was coaching back in the day, and he learned from Chuck Noll, and most of the time his guys weren't burning the midnight oil. They were home to see their families, have dinner with them because that was important to them. They got all their work done when they were at the office. But now you have coaches who are sleeping in the offices, watching tape 24 hours a day just to get that slight little edge. But Dungy obviously had success.
And
there are players that, like Peyton Manning, who do live in the film room and do all that other stuff. But do you think there could be a case for Johnny in quasi that same fashion where he gets his work done when he's at the office, his free time is his free time, he shows up Sunday, is a gamer, and just balls out? Do you think that could happen?
If he is playing for a franchise that is losing despite his efforts, and he's not there and other people are there, it's going to be an issue. I mean, you look at someone who had a lot to overcome, like a Drew Brees. Mark Brunell, who played with Brees, said that in the off season, Drew Brees is there at 9 p.m. on a Friday night. And Brunell's finally like, look, dude, I got to get out of here. But Drew Brees did that early in his career to overcome his limitations. And
from coming from Purdue, yes.
Yeah. Well, and his height and whatever else,
and his birthmark
you want to put on him. It's a limitation. So, I mean, of course, that made the team want to rally behind him because he is obviously putting in every bit of effort. Now, if you can win and your team can win despite the fact you're not putting in that effort, then more power to you. But if you're not winning, you better be there.
I just think Kyle Shanahan's going to pull out all the stops these last 3 games because he's got a shot at an NFL head coaching job. There's going to be a lot of turnover in the ranks again. And I think with him, Manziel, showing what he did with RG3 in 2012, I think Shanahan is going to go balls to the wall, and Manziel is going to be a lot of fun to watch these last 3 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, may as well go out there and sling it and run it and scramble and be insane because, honestly, they've already said, what do we have to lose? Let's try the rookie we haven't really seen play all that much. So, may as well let him try and do his thing and see what happens.
I believe the words you're looking for are low.
Low.
Wrapping up this segment really quick, offensive coordinator who's not having as good of a time with his quarterback is Aaron Kromer, offensive coordinator to the Bears, and he had to apologize to the Bears offensive personnel this week for leaking to NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport that the Bears are experiencing buyer's remorse with Jay Cutler. And Kromer teared up during sorry, this is funny. Kromer teared up during the apology. Cutler was seen SMH shaking my head, as Cutler is wont to do. Oh, also ESPN confirmed via Mort and Schefter that Ian Rappaport did indeed break this story, and Kromer was the insider on this. But what are your thoughts on an actual NFL coach leaking to the media?
Dude, that's so bad.
You're fired. I'm surprised that he is not gone right now.
Yeah. I mean, immediately, you need to get out of here. You're undermining us from the inside. Yeah, go, bye, later. It's basically corporate sabotage on an NFL level.
I get that Kromer is probably like nearly 99% going to be gone the offseason, but how can Cutler, Marshall, Forte, how can these guys trust him these final 3 weeks as Trestman and the Bears try and save face for this terrible 5-8 season?
They can't. So basically, go ahead and bring Cutler to Houston and bring him with a real QB guru and let him be the Bay he's supposed to be.
I didn't know Romeo worked very well with quarterbacks.
Oh, stop.
Stap. S-T-A-P-H. We need to stop and take a break. The second segment is in the books. We'll be coming back with a fun little game. Hall of Fame or not Hall of Fame. Also, Jaguars fans are jerks. That's a tease, I guess. And make our Week 15 picks. Claire-vs-Carlson Show, BRB.
Hello?
For daily conversations with the players, coaches, and contributors that make this game great.
Regulators, mount up. We're coming.
Football Convos. Visit